see the Mackinac Bridge.
The Mackinac Bridge. In 1957, when the bridge was completed, it was known as the longest suspension bridge in the world. This 5-mile-long bridge spans the Straits of Mackinac and separates Lake Michigan to the west and Lake Huron to the east.
They're working on my car as we speak. Let's try that again. And I'm gonna walk over to the ferry, about 5 blocks over. Why not ride the ferry? Let's see if I have time. Hopefully they are not leaving like right now. Actually, no, I hope they are, and I hope I make it. We'll see. Waiting in line for the ferry. Always the downtime, the hours spent charging the batteries.
Hang on to that for your return trip, sir. You're all set.
Thank you. Looking around, this may be the most bikes I've ever seen in my life.
Actually, there are no motor vehicles at all on the island. Well, except a couple emergency vehicles, planes, and some for construction. At the turn of the 20th century, when the first cars started arriving on Mackinac, the locals weren't having it. They were loud, caused congestion, scared the horses, and polluted the pure Michigan air. But since the island is only 8 miles around, with most things being accessible in less than 1, they really aren't missed. You can get anywhere you need to go easily by bike, foot, or horse-drawn carriage. Those have actually become some of the perks of the island that add to its charm. Total, there are about 500 horses, 5,700 bikes, and 492 permanent residents. One of the supporters of the automobile ban was the Grand Hotel. This may or may not have something to do with the fact that the Mackinac Island Hotel Company was formed by rail and steamship companies and promoted tourism as being accessible by train and by steamer. The Grand Hotel may be the most famous landmark on the island. Built in 1887, the hotel took 93 days to complete. Over the 130 years since then, many additions have been added. The total facility now is about 312,000 square feet over about 10 acres. Notable guests have included U.S. presidents such as Truman, JFK, Gerald Ford, George Bush, and Bill Clinton, and was even used to film the 1947 musical comedy This Time for Keeps and the 1979 cult classic Somewhere in Time. The Fort Mackinac Post Cemetery was the final resting place for Fort Mackinac soldiers and their families. Both British and American soldiers from the War of 1812 are buried there. Because many early markers were made of wood, the identifying information was lost over time. Out of the 108 graves, only 39 are known. For that reason, the flag flies at half-staff. There are only 3 other cemeteries in the country where the flag flies at half-staff. They are Arlington National Cemetery, Gettysburg, and Punchbowl, Honolulu, which is Pearl Harbor. The cemetery ceased to function in 1895, which is also the year that Fort Mackinac was decommissioned and turned into Michigan's first state park, 20 years after becoming America's second national park in 1875. The first, of course, being Yellowstone 3 years before that in 1872.
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. Yeah, you seem excited about today. Oh, I'm 11. You need an ID? I have Benjamin Button syndrome. No? Oh. Okay. Thank you. Exploring old forts. Always a fun time, eh? A little bit of Canadian ever since crossing that border earlier. Hello. Let's keep walking.
In about 1780, the British built Fort Mackinac to strategically control the area and held the outpost throughout the American Revolutionary War. The British did not officially give the fort to the United States until 1796. On July 17, 1812, during the War of 1812, British and Native American forces under the command of British General Isaac Brock stormed Fort Mackinac. In 70 war canoes and 10 bateaux with forces numbering about 200 men and a few hundred Native Americans supporting, landed on the north end of the island, taking the Americans by surprise. The fort, under the command of Lieutenant Porter Hanks, with about 60 men under his command, saw they were vastly outnumbered and also feared that the Native Americans would slaughter them and their allies, so they decided to surrender without a fight. The British allowed the Americans to go free under the conditions that they swear not to take up arms for the remainder of the war, and the islanders swear an oath of allegiance to the United Kingdom. Lieutenant Hanks then went to the American post in Detroit. When he got there, he ended up being charged with cowardice for surrendering without a fight. Before he could be court-martialed, the British attacked Fort Detroit and a cannonball crashed into the room and cut Hanks in half, as well as killing the officer next to him. American forces were able to reoccupy Fort Mackinac in July of 1815.
Ready? Fire! Welcome to Fort Mackinac.
My car is done from the mechanic. Got a new battery swapped out. Gotta go back there and get that before they close. And then I'll be heading back around. Going for some more cool fun stuff.
Come on back before somebody rats me out.